And welcome to the Empowering Law Firm Leaders podcast, where we'll be talking to experts across the legal sector to discover the mindsets, behaviours, skills and digital tools that are needed to run a successful modern law firm. I'm Amy Bruce, host and head of marketing at Osprey Approach. And today I'm joined by employment lawyer, director at Dice Business Game Changers, who mentor business leaders to create a winning people-first business, director at HM COSEC and HM Wealth, and Managing Director at HM3 Legal for the last 7 years, Lindsey Kidd. Welcome, Lindsey. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Nice to see you, Amy.
So today we'll be discussing why failure, experimentation and innovation is an essential element of law firm success. We'll discuss what it takes to run a successful law firm and the impact of thinking differently, how to drive cultural change, the benefit of being a B Corp, and success measures modern law firms should be tracking. So, Lindsey, I had the pleasure of hearing you talk at the 2 previous Law Ambition conferences in the Managing Partners Secret session. And both times I felt inspired and energised by the values that you focus on to run your law firm. Because if we're honest, they're probably not the norm or the typical that you'd see amongst your competition. So I'm kind of curious as to whether you had a particular role model or mentor that inspired you to run your business this way, or perhaps it was the total opposite and you worked with someone or for someone that showed you exactly how not to run a law firm and you wanted to do something a little different.
Yeah, probably a blend of that actually. So I think my reflection would be coming up through the ranks as a junior lawyer, definitely, unfortunately, did see things that weren't good. I heard things that weren't good and I felt things that weren't good. So I definitely didn't want to do any of that. Obviously, there's a few people that inspire you along the way as well. I particularly warm to people that, or leaders that protected their people, if that makes sense. So that's probably at the heart of my style of leadership. But I don't know whether it can be as simple as doing more of what works and makes people happy and doing less of what's not going well, and that's my style of leadership. So but with the people at the heart of it, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that feeling of protection, and when somebody, especially a leader, makes you feel that way, it sticks with you forever. And I guess that's had such an influence on how you run your business. So what would you say are your top 3 lessons in hindsight, and obviously you're still learning in the position today, as what it takes to run a successful law firm and be a successful law firm leader?
Yeah, well, I think what you've just touched on it there, it's okay not to know it all, because you can't know it all. So that's fine to acknowledge that. I think that's the first thing. So you're always on a continual journey, aren't you, of your own self-improvement. I mean, even the most brilliant people and brilliant sports people have coaches, don't they? So it's all right to get a bit of external help if that would, benefit you. So it's okay not to know it all. I think the other thing that you'll probably have heard me say probably both years at the conferences is I strongly believe that listening is a superpower. So listening and then listening again. So that's listening, not just to respond initially, but listening to hear. And sometimes that's really raw, unvarnished truth, can be painful. But if you lean into that and listen, whether that's listening to your people, again, what's working well, what's not working well, or to your clients, if you're, particularly in the legal sector, then that's where you can learn and then continue to lead the business. So I think, listening being a superpower. I think what you've then got to do, of course, is close the feedback loop, if that makes sense. It's no good just listening. You've got to make sure that your people feel listened to and heard, and then you've got to respond in ways that show them that you value their input, and give them what you can to the extent that you're able to give them what they need to the extent that you're able to enable them to do their best and be their best. So that probably leads me then on to, if you wanted 3 things, the third thing I would say is looking after your people. Because if you're looking after your people, 100% what happens is they look after your clients are super happy, they come back for more, they refer and recommend in their own networks, and then that drives more business into the law firm, which means you can then invest more into your people. That's sort of the model that we're working to. And I suppose those are my reflections on the top 3, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get the sense that and I'm sure we'll find out in this conversation that people really do sit at the heart of everything that you do. But it's important that the first point you make about not knowing everything, and actually I think that takes a bit of self-awareness. I guess that's a key skill people maybe could look to lean towards and improve, is becoming more self-aware.
Yeah, okay. Well, just my own personal journey. I don't know if this is so we're a mid-sized firm, we turn over £7 million. So we're not massive, but we're not tiny. Usually what happens in my size of firm is that the managing director or the managing partner, whatever they're called, is usually or can be the person around the table who's the best biller. You get that a lot in law firms, which isn't necessarily a good thing. And I haven't done an MBA or been to business school, and I think there are a lot of people leading law firms that haven't had any formal training in business. So you sort of do learn a lot of it on the job. I think what I like to do is look at other industries and what's working well in other sectors, and try and bring some of the learnings from those sectors into the law firm. So whether that's particularly retail or hospitality, ones that are around client experience, and try and bring those in, because you can't know it all. You can't know it all, and it's okay to acknowledge that and just be on that continual learning journey and remain curious. So all the self-improvement books and the podcasts, love all that, because I fully accept that I don't know it all. Even though I've been doing it for 7 years, I know a lot more now than I did when I started, for sure, because I've learned it and I've experienced it. But I still don't know it all. I don't, and that's okay.
I love that we've started the podcast and we've already used the word curious. We've touched on that in other episodes. I think that's my favorite word, is to be curious.
Yeah.
And I love that from a client service point of view. Previous podcasts have also talked on looking at other industries, especially retail. That's a great point. But again, being also curious about yourself and your own skills and your own improvement. I think that's a really great point as a leader, for sure. Big fan of the book Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed. The book discusses the importance of experimentation and having a growth mindset. In it, he says, only by redefining failure will we unleash progress, creativity, and resilience. So in your law firm ambition talk, you mentioned that the legal sector is notoriously bad at failing and bad at innovating. Can you share the impact that you believe that's having on law firm success, and how the sector could potentially be better at innovating?
Yeah, sure. I think, and I don't know whether it's ego driven, you don't want to try something or in case it fails and reflects badly on you. And I think that although a lot has changed since the pandemic, there's still a lot of leadership styles that are very command and control. So that becomes, I think, a bit of a barrier to people feeling safe to suggest things, if that also makes sense. So people just carry on doing it the way that they've always done it, and then it's always going to be the same that it's always been. But that's not going to work, is it? Because unless you're iterating and improving and innovating, you're going to stand still. And if that's like a massive risk to your business, to stand still and stagnate, it means you lose your relevance in your agency, and you lose your point of difference if you have one. So you've got to continually iterate and try things. And to do that, I think what you need to do is having your business complete psychological safety. So I guess the fact that I don't know it all, and I'm still happy to learn and want to learn. And the best place you can learn from, and the best ideas, absolutely come from your people, because they're living and breathing the day to day, and they have the ideas. So if you can create that psychological safety so that there's no fear of failure, then that's where you can get exponential growth, really. And there are lots of different ways of doing that. What works in our business, we actually have innovation as one of our values. So that's one of the behaviors that we like to see, that we reward and celebrate together. And we do that at an annual awards ceremony where people can in the business can nominate their colleagues for any behavior that's in one of our values, so including innovation. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, does it? It can just be a small process improvement but if you've got 70 lawyers in your business, then that small process improvement, can actually, it's like that marginal gains thing, isn't it? Innovation feels like a scary word, but it's not. It can be just a marginal improvement that actually, if implemented across the business, can deliver loads for you. So, and your people are the you know, the ones that have the best ideas for that. So the other way we do it is what I call gamification. So you as well as celebrating, you can where those behaviours are demonstrated, you can gamify it. So reward people with so we have a wellbeing platform with HICA, which is, I guess, also of itself quite innovative, because it is a wellbeing platform that allows colleagues to choose benefits and rewards and things that they need based on where they are in their life journey, if that makes sense. So a lot of businesses will just implement, oh, here you are, here's private medical for you, but not everyone will use that every year, and some people will go years without using it, but that's a cost to the business. What we've done after listening to our colleagues is implemented a wellbeing platform that means that they can choose what they want at the point they want it. So if they do need physiotherapy, the kind of thing that you would get in an insured benefits package, you can have that. But if you don't need it, you can use your credits on something else, like rock climbing or a massage or fertility testing or food intolerance testing, or you know, loads and loads of stuff that help your well-being. So depending on where in your life journey you are, you can get what you need at the time that you need it. So yes, I'm rambling again, Amy. This is what happens to me. I get all, so back to innovation you're asking me about, where you and psychological safety and making sure that your people are happy to put forward ideas, because they know that that you will welcome those ideas, that you actively are seeking those ideas, and then you try them. And the things that don't, it's a little bit Jeff Bezos-y, if that makes sense. You know about his sliding doors test, you know about that? So if it's a big decision and you go through the sliding door and the door closes behind you, you're going to think about that a lot more than if it's just something that you could try and see if it works, and if it does, do more of it. So that's how we operate. If complete psychological safety, and trying to incentivize and encourage, reward and celebrate our people for coming up with innovative ideas. They don't have to be massive.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpick there. I think the key thing for law firm success is what you said about innovation. Doesn't need to be big and scary. It can be those small 1% changes that actually have such an impact when they're rolled out and rolled up. I think that's a great point. Do you have any potential examples of things that's happened in your firm where it's been a small change, but actually you've realised it's had a huge impact?
Oh, loads actually. So, and the way that those ideas come in are usually on our employee engagement platform. So we do colleague listening every week on our employee engagement platform. There's opportunity to suggest them, but they're mainly the little things around how we can improve either our onboarding process or part of the client experience as part of the journey by department. And that's a little bit to do with how do I put this nicely in terms of and I know it's not just my experience as a leader of a business, but practice management and case management systems in law firms. If you are a full multidisciplinary law firm like we are, it's very hard to find a case management system that you can take out of the box and is completely bespoke to all your different service lines. So you've got to put a lot of iteration into that yourself to make sure that it is making sure that there's productivity there and efficiency there, but not at the expense of the client experience. So a lot of the suggestions around finessing, if you like, our case flows will have come from our people, and around we're very big on paper light, if that makes sense. So the processes around moving from historically what was a paper heavy business to a paper light one, those come from our people, and then you can take it further forward from efficiencies in the law firm to things. So we're a B Corp accredited business, so we're B Corp certified, and a lot of the suggestions around how we can improve in those areas have also come from the business. And I think it's back to that, if you can gamify the behaviour that you want, it's a little bit like, there's some kind of famous saying that I'm going to completely butcher to here. It's something to do with if you ask who's the best rock climber in the world, the best rock climber is the one that's having the most fun. Apparently it's, it doesn't mean you don't actually have to be the best at what you're doing, but to yourself, feeling empowered because you're having fun. So I think in terms of innovation, people in my business will say they're happy to put forward suggestions, because we don't need to be afraid about it, because we'll listen to that and we'll respond. So if we've thought about it and we've decided we're not going to go with that idea, we'll close the feedback loop. If we're going with that idea, people will get rewarded and celebrated for it. So, and then, you know, they have a little bit of ownership of that. And some of the gamification we do around those behaviours, again, can have an element of fun in it, because we spend a lot of our time at work, don't we? So I think, you know, it's really important to be able to harness fun in your business. Yeah, but process efficiency, bringing it back to the question, the usual things that come up from the people in the business. We ran an initiative, actually, I think it might have been in 2020, so it's a little while ago now, actually a little bit before that, where we had a one big idea project where multidisciplinary, multi-layered colleagues, so people, you know, from the support functions and the legal teams at different seniorities, were put into groups and asked to just spend some budget and some fun time coming up with one big idea that would impact the business in a positive way. And then they presented those back collaboratively, and 3/4 of the team's ideas were actually around some kind of employee engagement forum. So we have an employee engagement committee now on the back of that suggestion. So that's not about improving the processes in the business, but it's about improving the culture, and that's definitely helped. The other idea that the teams came up with was like well, we call it Lawyer Link. It's like a fee share where we take work from firms that either don't do this kind of work, or have got a conflict, or don't have the capacity, and we share some of the fees back with that law firm that can't handle the work for whatever reason. So that was something that came up, as you know, from having a bit of fun with colleagues in teams, where we had a particular project around coming up with one big idea. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great initiative. It reminds me, I worked at a previous software company and we did hackathons. I think that's quite common in tech and development, in that teams get together and exactly the same thing. They try and come up with a brand new idea. Normally it's tech dev based, but I love that you've taken that approach and bring that into a law firm and a legal practice. And I think it's great that a question about innovation has always come back to your team. It's about reducing the fear. It's about rewarding them. It's about adding value to their day.
Yeah.
I love that idea of, innovation is actually hugely people focused.
Well, just picking up on you use the word hackathon there. So we had our own hackathon. I'll just share that with you since you've mentioned it. So every month I have a hub day where everyone comes to headquarters, and this is part of our initiative post-pandemic of FOMO. Have you heard that phrase? Fear of missing out on the office.
Oh, okay.
So not mandating a return to the office. What we're trying to do is have like a really creative, engaging space where people actually want to come. So it's not mandated in terms of days of work or that kind of thing, but on the third Thursday of every month, we do ask everyone to come to HQ, and I'll do a business briefing. So that's around transparency and sharing what's going on, why it's going on, that kind of thing. So a business briefing, and then there'll be something else. So that might be social and fun. That might be something that our EEC have put on, like Crafty Club, or it might be an external speaker that comes in, and they may be well-being based. They may be might be about might be something to do with improving how we operate as a legal business. So it might be management consultancy, legal coming in. But when we were going through our B Corp journey, we had another very large local B Corp business come in. The B Corp lead came in and shared their B Corp journey post certification, because we were just getting ready to be accredited. And on the back of that, with her, we facilitated a hackathon with the team where they could come up with ideas, new ideas about how, once we got our B Corp status, we could really focus on that continual improvement that B Corp require of you, and what ideas we could have. It was the most juiced up I've seen the team as you know, it was really high energy and a great thing to do, and we came away with loads of ideas about how we would continue with our B Corp journey once we were certified. So yeah, what's that saying? It's saying that all the good ideas in this business are coming from the people, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I don't work in the legal sector, but I'd be excited to join your team. Like, it seems like the energy that you give off, and the time that's dedicated to make sure that people feel empowered to do their job is super key. And I guess that must help your retention slash hiring process. I know it's a huge challenge for the sector, but do you feel the same challenges, or?
Yeah, so I would say we reset our business plan in June 2020, literally in the eye of the pandemic storm. And we did make a big change to the business, which I talk about a lot. So we're not going to talk about it in this session, but you know, people look at our website, they'll see that we have purposely set ourselves up differently with a challenge and a mission to do law differently. And to do law differently, you've got to train your people to do law differently, and you've also got to invest in them so that, you know, that they need to understand and buy into the mission. They need to know what their part is that they're going to play. They want to understand why. So you've got to be a really good storyteller to take people on that change journey with you. And what you have to be able to offer is something that's beyond just what everybody else is doing, because we are in a really saturated market in legal, especially in the mid-tier space, which we are. So the stat I always share is I think that there are now about 9,500 law firms in the UK. That's a lot of law firms. The top 200, which everybody talks about, is judged by turnover, which for me isn't a great metric. I think that's a vanity metric, and we have other metrics. I can, you know, come on and talk about those in a minute if you like. But so the top 200 turnover, 2 billion at the top of the top 200, down to at the bottom of the top 200, the turnover is 12 million. So that leaves 98% of the legal sector market turning over 12 million or less. That's really, really saturated. Loads of law firms looking, sounding the same, treating their people the same-ish. So what we wanted to do was do something different. So, and I think I would, you know, I'll admit the pandemic was the impetus for us to do that. And we had to be bold, and we did. So now our people are the centre of what we do. I think we used to say, as everyone does, oh, clients are at the heart of everything we do. And they are really, but you've got to look after your people first. If you're not looking after your people, you can't look after your clients. So yeah, and it is working. And it's not just one thing, it's lots of little things. So it's the fact that we've got a bold brand, it's the fact that we deliver law differently, it's the fact that we've got great clients that are all great to work for, it's the fact that we're B Corp certified, it's the fact that if you come here you have flexibility from day one. So I'm a working mum, I've got 2 young boys. Of the 3 of us that own the business, 2 of us have young, you know, we're 2/3 female led. Most of our staff, I would say, are, you know, predominantly female, lots of flexible workers, and that giving folk that, and I guess really empowering them to know that they can have the flexibility that they need, and trusting them to do the job rather than micromanaging. It means that if they want to have, if they need, you know, they need, of course they do need time off to go to drop their child off at first day at school. Yeah, that, or sports day, or nativity, whatever it is. You don't, you know, that's great, lovely. Share a picture with us. We'd love to see that, rather than you know. So no chargeable hours targets. For, you know, that's very different than a lot of other legal firms that were very heavily target their people on hitting a certain number of chargeable hours. We don't do that. I will say something like, oh, I'd like you to spend half of your time on client work, and the other half I'd like you to spend on developing yourself or the business, or adding some value for our clients and intermediaries, so that, you know, if that makes sense. So it's a lot more, I don't know, I'm in this incredible position, aren't I? I don't want to say lucky, because I've worked hard, but I'm in this incredible position where I can I can run the business or have a business, develop a business for the people that I wish I'd had the benefit of when I was coming up as a junior lawyer through the ranks.
You touched on your website and your brand there. We don't even have time to talk about your values and your mission today, but I will put all the links in the notes below. But your website is super clear in what you stand for and how you behave and how you service your clients, and that's super clear in your brand, and will obviously attract the type of people you're looking to attract to grow your firm. And one of those people that you've recently hired is Chris Hayes, your head of innovation, who you said will spearhead innovative ideas and will set new benchmarks in our field. Why was this hire important for your business? I guess it's an unusual title and role to have in a law firm.
Right. Oh, okay. Is it? I probably hadn't thought that it was, but it's back to the point around continual iteration. If you're not improving, you're stagnant, and that puts you in the risk zone. So bringing Chris in as someone that is, and he straddles two camps. So he is actually a lawyer, so he gets it, and that helps, rather than just bringing in a tech person, if that makes sense. He's got a natural interest in tech, and so is helping us to innovate. So it's not changing the services we're offering. What it's doing is making them more accessible and relevant to our current clients and the future clients that are all, you know, the digital, the SME client leaders of the future are all going to be digital native if they're not already, if that makes sense. So delivering the services in a digital way means that we can meet the clients where they're at, and the feedback's been incredible from the things that we've tried so far. People are finding it, you know, it's that they recognize it's innovative and refreshing, and it's allowing us to deliver our services sustainably rather than in person. So it's working really well. And that was a bold move, I suppose. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it. Maybe other firms don't have a head of innovation, but it's working for us. That's good.
Yeah, I guess they don't, maybe because it's seen as a nice to have. Maybe it's, you know, not seen as the essential, but I guess you'd argue that it probably is to be successful long term.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, you know, so can you afford not to? So that's the question. You know, oh, we can't afford that, but can we afford not to? And sometimes you have to, you know, be bold, and I mean that in relative terms, given the size that we are.
Yeah, are you able to share any initiatives or innovations that you're currently working on or perhaps experimenting with?
So the one that we're rolling out at the moment is AI generated training content. So that's for clients, but also, and not just training in legal services, but explainer videos. So if you're, for example, say you are an SME client who's selling their business or acquiring a business, and you want to understand what due diligence is about, and usually we'll explain that in a call, and then we'll explain it in a text-based either email or document or letter, which is fine. But the way we'll also give you now the option of having it in an explainer video so that you can listen to it and see it rather than just read it. So it's just at the moment, it's just another method of delivering the service. But clients are responding really well to it. Lots more to come, which I can't share. We should do something next year. I'll share more.
Yeah, watch this space for sure. I think that's a really interesting use of AI in the legal sector. I think typically you see a lot of usual cases for it, normally about contracts or knowledge sharing or knowledge collection, whereas actually taking more of a marketing focus on how you communicate your service is actually a great technique for you to produce these things quicker and more efficiently. So yeah, that's a great use.
Yeah, it's about enhancing the client experience. That's it. And like the law's the law, isn't it? So yeah, all the usual tools around efficiency and productivity, great, super good. And clients expect you to know the law these days, and you know, it's a hygiene factor. It's really how you deliver it, isn't it? It's not so much what you say or the advice you give. It's how you're making them feel when you give that, when you're providing the service. So a lot of the innovation that we'll be delivering will be the tech innovation will be around the client experience and how the client journey is improved as a result of that, because that's what clients like and that's what they come back for.
Yeah, that's what sets you apart. That's what makes you different. And doing things differently requires a cultural shift. I
Yeah.
think for any leader listening to this that is setting up a new business or as an aspiring leader, what advice would you give for driving cultural change, and how do you achieve that in M3 Legal?
Yeah, okay. So you've got to take your people with you. Yeah. Setting the strategy, as hard as that is actually the easy bit.
Yeah.
What's the hard bit is the execution and the implementation, staying in your lane, remaining focused, and implementing the strategy that you've set and not getting distracted by shiny, bright new things over here. And you've got to be a strong storyteller to take your people with you on the journey. And you can't just tell them what they've got to do. You've got to explain the why. So I'm not going to get all Simon Sinek on us here, but people need to understand the purpose behind what you're asking of them so that they can buy into it. And it needs to look good for them. Otherwise they're just going to dial it in. The magic happens when you've got well looked after, happy, engaged colleagues who are really leaning into what you're trying to deliver. So yeah, taking your people with you is probably the key thing for transformational change. And you've got to work hard at it every day. You don't just deliver an all hands town hall meeting on day one and step back. You've got to, you've got to lead it from the front and listen and iterate along the way, because we set our journey, as I said, we started, our new business plan in June 2020, but it's not quite the same. If I look back, here we are 4 and a bit years down the line, we've learned along the way, but we're still on the same plan. What we're just trying to do is more of the same, but even better, if that makes sense. And a lot of that momentum and impetus is coming from the people because they've bought into what we're trying to do and they're enjoying it. What they really love is the investment in them. So again, not just telling them what to do, but sharing the why and then giving them all the tools that they need to do that. And that's not just legal knowledge. It isn't. In fact, that's just a small bit of it, maybe 10% of it. The rest is empowering them to do and be their best. So you've got to look after them, their well-being, super important. And then training in business skills, in human skills, progression pathways, so they can see what the future might hold for them, so that they can do and be their best. So yeah, taking your people with you, I think, is the key to it.
Yeah, I think you talked about staying focused and not getting distracted. I think that's probably very underrated focus, in that shiny things come across all the time and there's always going to be millions of ideas you could do, but the only way you're going to be successful in what you've laid out is if you're super focused. We spoke to Simon McCrum right at the start of the podcast series, and he said the magic happens when you get all these incredibly talented people rowing in the same direction. He used a boat analogy, and it sounds like that's how you feel for your firm too.
Well, we also use a boat analogy, but I would say, like, my first few years in leadership were about getting the barnacles off the boat, if that makes sense, because that's the reality of law firms. It's so getting the barnacles off the boat took a while. What we wanted to do, and we often talk about it here in terms of we want to be proud. People that work for the business, we want them to be proud. As owners, we want to be proud. We want intermediaries to be proud to refer clients to us. And we want clients to be proud to be connected with us. So I wanted to make sure that the hull of our boat, if that makes sense, that I would be proud of it if it was in a dry dock rather than under the waterline. So yeah, the boat analogy, I get that. You need all the people rowing in the same direction. Where you come unstuck, of course, is if you've got people just sitting at the back eating the chocolate buttons and not actually contributing to the forward trajectory of where the boat's supposed to be going. I guess, where are we going? How are we going to get there? Who's going to help us? All the right bums on the right seats. You'll hear that spoken about. I do agree with that. People.
Yeah, I guess that's a whole other conversation about how you deal with those who are sitting in the back eating chocolate buttons, but we'll save that for another discussion. So yeah, you mentioned earlier about being B Corp. Congratulations for achieving that. I read in your press release that you said you're proud to be joining a growing movement of global companies acting as a force for good and reinventing how to do business. There are around 2,000 B Corp businesses in the UK, and only about 20 are law firms. Why was it important for you to be B Corp?
It's a good question. Let's take a slightly contrarian view there. So it was I don't think we thought, oh, we must become B Corp. I think what we thought was we're doing all of the things that a good B Corp business should do. So let's get certified and recognized for it. So it was a bit like that initially. And then as we began the process, so for those of you that listen and that don't know about B Corp, you've got to get to 80 points across 5 different areas, including not just environmental things, but it's, you know, there's community impact, governance, sustainability, and client, and how you look after your workers is what that's what they're called in the B Corp community. And we were already doing loads of those really good stuff. So we're female led, we're a different business model. 2/3 of our leadership team are women. We offer flexible working. We've never said no to a flexible working request. We were the first employer in the whole world to commit to sustainable palm oil. We have the best in class client satisfaction and employee engagement scores, best of any law firm as accredited by the IIC. So we're doing all this really good stuff. Governance was strong, lots of community impact. So we thought we would go for the certification, and then it became a bit of an obsession about getting more points to, you know, but we were really looking that we didn't need to do anything different to pass the 80 mark. We wanted to do beyond that in case we lost a few in the certification process. So what is that? I guess it's about getting recognition for what you're doing, and that's one thing we're trying to be a bit better about. We've got a good story. It's working, clients love it, colleagues love it, I love it, and we need to be better about getting the story out there. So I think it was a part of it was a little bit about getting recognition for what we were already doing, and I think we also knew that we would be really strong advocates in the B Corp community. So one of the things that is really we've had a lot of engagement from the staff. I talked about the hackathon earlier. Couple of stats for you. So 90% of UK consumers are more likely to trust a B Corp brand than one that isn't B Corp. Your colleagues are at least 20% more likely to be engaged if you're in if they're working in a B Corp business. B Corps survived a lot more with a lot more resilience during the pandemic. So commercially, it just makes sense on every level. Plus, you're doing good. You're a business for good. It's really enriching being part of that community of like-minded people and knowing that you're part of something that's bigger than just yourself. And of course, it attracts clients that want to be handled by a B Corp law firm. So, you said 20 law firms, and I've shared earlier what a B Corp and 9,500 law firms in the UK. So this is a real point of difference for us that we need to capitalise on, isn't it? And then colleagues that want to come and work for B Corp. So it has actually been a talent attraction magnet, if that makes sense. One of the questions you're asking earlier about, recruitment and retention. So looking a bit different, being bold, also being B Corp does help attract talent. And then it's our job to look after them and, train them and show them the progression pathways and as part of looking after their whole self once they're here. But it works on a number of levels, and it's just great. It really is B Corp, 100%.
Yeah, I guess it's a very quick and easy way to show that whole list of things you were doing that's quite difficult to get over in a short space of time. Whereas if you say B Corp, a lot of people are aware of what that means and the values you must hold and the things that you must deliver upon. So I guess, if you're already doing all of that anyway, it's a great sort of stamp of approval and a great quick way to get that message across. And I can only imagine the types of people that attracts from an employee and a client point of view, which will align with your values. If they care for B Corp and you care for B Corp, you've got yourself the perfect team, the perfect set of clients.
Completely. Just challenge you a little bit on the quick and easy. It wasn't quick or easy, so it took a while, and the hard work is in collating all the documents and the evidence to go with your application when you're going for certification. That's what it does take a lot of time, but it's also rewarding because you've got to involve lots of different people from lots of different areas in the business. So it's a really collaborative process and one that you learn lots about. And even though we were doing more than enough, if you like, to become certified, we'd still found where we could improve and innovate as part of that process, a lot of self-reflection. And you have to have that mindset that B Corp isn't a destination. It doesn't end once you get your certification. You've got to get recertified every few years, and you're challenged to continually improve. So that iteration, and I love that challenge. That's great, you know, that a little bit better every time. What's not to like? It's good. Otherwise it gets boring and isn't as much fun.
Yeah, and it creates a great focus. You mentioned about you don't have those billable hour targets, and we'll move on to success measures now, like how do HM3 Legal measure success. And I guess one of the great things is now you've got a B Corp framework that allows you to measure your success against something else that isn't revenue and isn't the usual target. So yeah, can you share any examples of how you measure success at your firm?
I can. So again, yeah, right, we are a little bit different. So we've got 3 measures. None of them are financial, which is unusual. One is client satisfaction. One is colleague happiness, colleague engagement, if you like, and the other is B Corp. That's it, 3 metrics. And I think there's definitely some truth in what gets measured improves, because we've definitely seen over the 4 years we've focused on those metrics that all of them have improved. So we do have best in class scores for client satisfaction. So we're number 1 in terms of client satisfaction as ranked by the Investors in Customers accreditation. So that out of any law firm in the UK, which is incredible. And the same stat as well for employee happiness, again ranked externally by the IIC. So we've got the most satisfied clients and the happiest people, and obviously we're a B Corp. Now, what do I want to do? I want to say that's great, but there's always room for improvement. Let's get each of those scores up a little bit by continuing to measure them and work hard on delivering them and have them as a focus. And if you have those as your organisation goals, and those are hosted on our employee engagement platform, so everybody knows that's what we're driving for, then the teams can set their goals to feed into those, and colleagues can, you know, at individual level can have their goals set to feed into team goals, to fit into the organisation goals. And those are the metrics that we look at. And our employee engagement score is one that we measure every week. We have a sentiment score on our employee engagement platform across 5 areas, including job satisfaction, how happy people are, whether they're a strong advocate for the business, all 5 measures, and that's what we measure. And it's I don't know, you know, I'm almost, you know, where do we go from here? We've got the happiest people, the most satisfied clients. We are a B Corp. We just need to keep improving that by listening to our people and our clients. We do a lot of client listening as well, just and using that. So those are the metrics we have. And I'll be honest, you know, yeah, it's a little bit not quite the same as look after the pennies and pounds or look after themselves, but look after those 3 metrics, and those are really driving our continued commercial success. So yeah, the profitability, you know, flows from happy clients and happy colleagues. So
yeah, absolutely. I think they're a great 3 focus. And you mentioned earlier that you allow and you dedicate and you prioritize time for your colleagues, for your employees, to dedicate to improving those things. I think that can be a barrier, in that a lot of people or firms or lawyers will say, I don't have time. And you mentioned earlier that you dedicate that time and you ensure that your employees are dedicating time to meeting those goals. And I guess it's because they are your goals and your focus isn't on the financials or the billable hours. That means it makes sense to spend time on those goals.
Yeah, because if you're measuring it, you need to put some energy and effort into improving it or making sure it happens. So we do a lot of training, and that's not just in our How to Wow program, which is around the 6 standards that we have. It's also in relation to our people. So, for example, 2/3 of the business are on our formal mentoring scheme. So, like there's a lot of mentoring and being going on in the business. We have a program to learn and networking and business development skills, because they definitely don't teach that at law school. And it's a bit of a, you know, people have quite a bit of anxiety around that. So it's these things so that will improve their human skills, won't it? But yes, it does also, nicely impact the business. The business does benefit from it, but it's not, we do training on unconscious bias and imposter syndrome, lots of other things that are around improving our people, because they're at the heart of the success of the business, really. So putting a lot of effort into that means that those metrics and measures hopefully improve each time they're measured.
Yeah, and it goes back to your point earlier about being self-aware and self-improvement. That's not just important for leadership, but it's important for the whole team to allow you to achieve those goals. That's a great point. We'll finish on advice for aspiring law firm leaders. What skills or characteristics do you believe successful and effective leaders need to possess? And what's your advice for the aspiring leader?
They need to possess. So empathy, I think. Resilience. I don't know if that and I would say curiosity. Those would be the three things that I would say. And if you're new to the roles, I would go back to what I said at the start, which is it's okay not to know it all, and take your time. You've got even if you're coming, if you've been promoted newly into a leadership role from within the business, rather than taking an external appointment, which, to be honest, in most law firms is how it works. So I'm speaking from experience here. That's a plus and a minus. So you know the business, the architecture and the org, of the business, the personalities in the business and how it operates. But also, you've also been known as the trainee solicitor, or depending on where you come from in the business. So you need to lean into those positives and what you know, and also be mindful that you don't know it all. So there are definitely some things you don't know, and don't be afraid to take soundings and listen. And that can be internally, but you don't want to like a yes chamber, do you? So listen externally and take your time. You don't need to come in and new broom sweeps clean. You don't need a scorched earth policy. Sometimes you just need some little tweaks and a little light-handed touch on the tiller of your boat, and that can make the difference. That can make the boat go faster with it, with the change in your leadership style and taking it easy. I think there's definitely a saying, isn't there? It's is it wise? You need a wise mind and a kind heart, but you also need a strong backbone. So with the other version of that would be, hard on the problem but kind on the person.
I think that's a great piece of advice and a great way to finish the podcast. Thank you so much, Lindsey, for your experience and sharing your knowledge. I'm so excited to see what HM3 Legal achieve and innovate and launch over the next 12 months. So we'll have to get back in touch and watch this space.